Earth, the only planet that supports life as we know it. The variation in form and function most wonderful, endangered by anthropogenic stresses. It is our responsibility to conserve all the natural variation that remains. Any successful conservation effort is dependent on mounds of scientific theory and facts, resulting from rigorous scientific research. Studies regarding Earth's biodiversity and the decline thereof require historical records of previous occurrences in order to implement successful management strategies to secure the future. Such baseline information is provided by your local Natural History Museum. Natural history museums maintain first-rate collections of biological materials ranging from preserved whole organisms to DNA libraries and cell lines for most regions of the world. The Iziko South African Museum was founded in 1825 and today houses more than 1.5 million specimens of scientific importance. The collection now ranges from fossils, almost 700 million years old, to insects and fish caught just last week, thousands carefully stored away. Each natural object is slightly different from all the others. We need many examples of each type or species of animal to find out how they vary so that we can be sure that we have identified them correctly. We must collect different animals from one place to find out how many there are. We must also collect many examples of each kind to find out which ones are most common. This helps us to understand how all animals and plants contribute to making our environment work. Without museum collections, we would have no permanent record of extinct animals. If more species become extinct, examples already safely stored in a museum will be the only direct evidence that they ever existed. At present, 3 broad areas of study related to species decline and the loss of biodiversity have become crisis disciplines and depend heavily on the information that museum collections offer. This includes species response to habitat loss and fragmentation, biological invasions, and the consequences of global climate change. Habitat loss, including fragmentation and degradation, is widely considered the greatest threat to biodiversity, and museum collections allow researchers to document the pace of these changes and their ecological consequences. Recent advances in molecular techniques have also permitted the genetic analysis of ancient specimens. Biological invasions are also recognized as a serious form of global change. Museum collections have been used to determine the current distribution of invaders, identify the source of introduced populations, reconstruct rates of spread, and illuminate the ecological impact of invaders. Furthermore, molecular data from collections are used to determine the evolution of invasives, illustrating the potential for rapid evolutionary responses of species in new environments. Information essential to understanding the spread of invasive species and the effectiveness of control strategies. By examining museum specimens, researchers have documented the effect of climate change on a variety of organisms and furnished a glimpse of future impacts. The contribution of these studies incorporate ones that document changes in the distribution of species through time, including their extinction, and ones that document changes in the biology of particular species in response to climate change. The use of museum collections for conservation purposes is so widespread and the scope of biological research they benefit so varied that it would be difficult to review even a handful of individual cases. The sheer prominence of references to museums in peer-reviewed publications is testimony to the contribution that they make to the biological sciences. Many publications in the most prestigious and frequently cited journals in the fields of ecology and evolutionary biology rely on museums for data, funding, and reference material. Additionally, museums save time and money. Firstly, as centralized storehouses of reference material, museums act as biological libraries, sites of accumulated knowledge and resources that eliminate the need for costly, time-consuming, and often dangerous fieldwork. Secondly, museums eliminate the wastefulness of duplication and redundancy, freeing researchers from the time and expense of curating all the specimens necessary for a functional reference collection. By reducing the cost of studying vectors of biodiversity, biological invasions, and global climate change, biological collections provide direct financial and social benefits to society. As the need for conservation action rapidly grows, so the demand for information on which to base that action increases. The scientific information should originate from conservation biologists, and they would do well by expending time and energy on supporting museum collections, which provide them with mountains of baseline information. We finish by quoting Richard Forte from his book, Dry Storeroom No. 1.
Our privilege, our uniquely human privilege, is that we alone among the multitude of species can understand the processes that got us to where we are today. Those who work in the secret museum on understanding animals and plants remind us paradoxically what it means to be human.
We would argue that being human does not mean to have dominion over all, but rather to conserve and protect these processes that got us to where we are today.